Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Reading from the Caitanya-bhāgavata Antya-khaṇḍa. Text 149. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prathamei paramārtha ki kahiyāi. Vyavahāra kahiyāi prabhodhiyā. So why should I first speak about the spiritual aspect? Let me first satisfy him by explaining their worldly relationships. Jnana timanandasya jnananjana shalakaya chaksur unmalatam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So greetings from Govardhan Hill. Right now I'm directly facing Govardhan Hill. I arrived this morning and took advantage of COVID to expertly renovate the place that I had. I mean, really expertly. Even the electricity is stabilized. The front courtyard is, I mean, it's really beautifully done. And now we're working on the next 2 apartments and then the next 2 apartments after that. So I feel very much at home here. And Bhakti began Goswami, wonderful Vaishnava, really began means realization. He's extremely learned. He has a project, 6.5 acres, facing, well, it's off the road, but you could just see Govardhan Hill. Today they had they usually have an antasesh. An antasesh holds up the world. So whenever you have a project, you dig the foundation and put that in there, and there's a whole ceremony. But I think it's Braj, so an antasesh is outside of Braj. But they had a very simple ceremony with a Brijbasi Brahmin. They have that raspy voice. I can't even imitate it. Not many people there. Myself and Bhaktivedanta Goswami, half a dozen, maybe a dozen disciples, and Ananda Vardhana Maharaj is a very elevated sannyasi, very elevated friend of mine. And then after it, we all got to plant. They're planting 4,000 trees. It's a beautiful thing that they're doing. And I felt honored to have been invited. That's why I came here a day earlier. They sent a card for me. And then I took lunch with Bhakti-Vigyan Swami. Now back at my place. And then I got back to my place, and then this sadhu from lives in Radhakund came to visit me, who a young man, married man, coming originally from ISKCON, probably still linked in ISKCON, but living there, and he's made his service to just excavate all the different holy places all over Braj. And he was telling me how he rediscovered Brajanath's samadhi. Brajanath is the great grandson of Krishna, who reestablished, after Krishna left, Brajamandal became quite desolate, and he was the king of Dwarka, because Krishna was the king of Dwarka, and he, a great-grandson, and he reestablished Braj with 350, he repopulated, brought people from Gujarat, 350 villages, 500 villages connected with Krishna's pastimes. So each village has a particular thing with Krishna's pastimes, and he got 350 deities carved, including Madan Mohan, Gopinath, and Govindaji. So there's a lot here to see. So quite excited to be here. And I know when I maybe I shared this the last time on Wednesday, but when I walked into the temple, the Krishna Balaram Mandir, first of all, one thing interesting is the state of UP is extremely well managed. The streets of Vrindavan are spotless. Just, it's a whole other world from what it was before. I drove in late at night and what? The streets are clean. And the chief minister is a sannyasi, Yogi Adityanath. So interesting. And I went to take darshan of Prabhupada's samadhi and then the deities, and what a spiritual atmosphere. Even someone told me now the devotees in the temple make the dresses for the deities. Mukunda Dutt, a god brother who I met. And that's, so much bhakti. It's just like if you actually have a deity and then you grow your own vegetables and then you grow your own flowers, it's like a higher standard. The more that it's you that does it, the more bhakti there is. So there's so much bhakti in that temple, and such a congregation of faithful people, and the kirtans, everything is so well managed. And I just had this sense, and what Vrindavan means is that it holds up a mirror to your false ego. Your false ego is your self-inflated conception of yourself, which is always a little bit better than you actually are, or not as bad as you think you are, whichever one. But it holds it up. And I said, there is a spiritual reality. There is a spiritual reality. That's the reality that I want. I'm not at that spiritual reality. There's something much higher. Because normally we have to create our environment. Here we live in the environment. The world around us is already self-manifested in Krishna Bhakti, especially with the people. And then this is, I ate with Bhakti-Vigyan Swami today, and he invited, any day you want to come for lunch, come for lunch. And it was very good, but it was very, many items, but very simple. And I kind of splurged, gouged. Because when I came to Vrindavan, the first day I went out for the Brijbasi rotis, which was unparalleled cuisine. It was just, I couldn't even imagine it. It was better than ever. The next day, Raghunath Pujari, who was a good friend of mine, invited me to his house. And then the next day, Alok, who published my books, Brijvasi, I went to his house. And Raghunath would send in the morning, parathas or different things. And then I remember this realization. Gail knows who Savita Bhattacharya is. Some of you may know, very advanced Vaishnavi. We used to go to her house in the Poconos. Her husband was a doctor. He passed away recently. I was Henry's friend, Nanda Dulal. I used to go to their house, and even when I was Jagrita Maharaj, while she's serving this Bengali cuisine, she's preaching. And I had the same realization as her. I had the realization today, but she said she saw in Mahabharata why Krishna took birth as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Bengal. And the reference was a reference where he went to Vidura's house, and it was very simple food, but it had this shock. It had this spinach, this simple food. And she said then that Krishna said, I'm tired of this aloo gobi, cauliflower and potatoes and fried and spices. And it's a different cuisine, North India. It's mostly the rotis and a little dal, the sabjis. They don't, probably many of you don't get that joke, but yeah, different type of cuisine than I was eating in the West. So I have to now go with the temple khichdi more. Anyway, another realization I had is I have to write Krishna-katha, the Ishapanti, where we have that festival every year. They're not opening for foreigners yet. They're just not opening for foreigners. They're taking precautions in advance, so they can't guarantee it to us. And she suggested some other places, but so maybe what I'll do is maybe at the beginning of February, I'm going to talk. Jagannath Priya is coming to see me today, and she's a good organizer. And maybe do a Govardhan retreat. I have my apartments here. There's a nice guest house right next door, belongs to the temple. And there's very nice hotels kind of like the next street, 2 minutes away. And maybe have a little bit, maybe kind of a little more advanced, not more advanced, but it's not the beach in Puri, but from here, now they built a road from Radhakund to Barsana. You can get to Barsana in 20 minutes. So maybe just go, maybe do a Leela Vilasini. And this Govardhan Das, this person who knows these places, and maybe have like I do in Colombia, but do it here. I give Harikatha in the morning, and the prasad at the ISKCON place is great. And then maybe, I'm just throwing it out there, maybe do a little retreat. I'm pretty good at organizing schedules, and then sometimes going around the hill halfway. It would be bring some good kirtaniers. So maybe I'm thinking like that. So now we'll get to the Antya-khaṇḍa. And I have to say, Vikram did a nice job. He somehow has a router here that's I see is fine. So it's not always that case, but I'm well connected here in Govardhan, which is good because there's certain people I have to use WhatsApp to speak to in the West. So it's good. But I think tomorrow my idea is to walk to Radhakund. because to take the initial, some kind of bath to purify myself. But it's great to be here in the holy land of Govardhan. Yeah, I met a godbrother, Mukunda Datta. He's a Sanskrit scholar. He's a classical kirtanier. And, you know, he stayed here during COVID. He was so skinny, and he's a very saintly person, and mentioned that, you know, Gopi Pranadhana, the Sanskrit scholar, my godbrother, lived here in Govardhan. He told him that for him, the West was good for the mind and the body, and not so good for the soul. And Govardhan is good for the soul and the other two aspects, especially when you stay. So I know that there's a spiritual energy here, and then I have to move intensely in the same direction. I gave the example like a boat on water. It's not that the wind is the enemy. It's the enemy when you're turning against it. When you're going with it, it's the friend. So it's not the energy of Govardhan that's difficult for them. It's when you're moving against it. When you're moving against it, there's actually Radha Krishna in the center, and you try to center yourself. That's the false ego conception. But if you move in that direction, then it's such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place. So I know I have to do something to intensely move in that direction. So tomorrow, a little tapas, I'll walk around that side. The next day, I'll walk around the other side, and just to get that spiritual intensity. So here in the Caitanya-bhāgavata, it's very, Lord Chaitanya now is going to go to Shantipur. He decided to go back. He was on his way to Mathura, and he decides to go back. His determination is an absolute fact. His will is an absolute fact. There's nothing external to God that's influencing him to do anything. It's from his love, and love does not move logically. Love does not move logically. It's an energy of its own that seeks that happiness wherever it's drawn. And it's very heartfelt. So from that platform of constant emotion, it doesn't exactly move according to plan. So he had planned to go one way, and now he's going back, and he stops in Shantipur. And Shantipur is right outside of Navadvip, and it's the place of Advaita Acharya, who is very significant in the tradition, because he preceded Lord Chaitanya. He was the generation before. And I believe he was the godbrother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Param Guru. Anyway, and he's the one that saw the materialism and petitioned God to come by worshiping the Ganges with the Ganges water and Tulsi. So he called God. And God is a person, and people are responsive to love. So God is responsive to love. The call of love and the need of love. And he saw that vibration and it raked his heart. And not only just the vibration, but the compassion in Dvaitacharya's heart, because he saw people were suffering and knew that certain situations are going to require divine intervention. I was thinking that almost like in the state of the world today, the state of America today, everything seems to be falling apart at almost a breakneck speed. I don't know, it just seems to be different forces that are destructive, and this has gone on for a while, and it's like gaining momentum. And there's got to be divine intervention. Of course, Prabhupada thought that divine intervention can come in terms of his appearance in terms of the Sankirtan movement. So Advaitacharya is a very significant person. And before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrives, you get a little vision of what he's going to come to. And we see this sannyasi, and he comes and he asks, who is the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya? And Advaita is at a quandary how to answer, because sometimes there's, and this is very interesting, even the understanding of Shastra. There are answers to questions on different levels. So on one level, the highest spiritual level, who's the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God. He doesn't really have a spiritual master. In fact, when Keshava Bharti, who is his sannyas guru, initiated him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu whispered the mantra in Keshava Bharti. I didn't get jet lagged. That was an amazing thing, a 13-hour flight. I mean, I didn't get jet lagged, but this may have been one of the times, maybe a little. So he whispered in his ear. So actually, in one sense, God is Guru. He doesn't require Guru, but he accepts Guru because yad yad acharite shreshtas tadeva, whatever great men do, common men follow. So on what platform is this question being asked? There's always and here he says, is he is he explaining the worldly position or the spiritual position? So the answer depends on who you're speaking to. So this is a very interesting thing, because even in Shastra, you have to see the truth is spoken, but who's the truth spoken to? And therefore you will understand the context of the truth that is being spoken. So, and when the person asks the question, on what level is he asking the question? On the worldly level or the spiritual level? And they both have a practical application in different circumstances. Because from the spiritual point of view, Lord Chaitanya has no spiritual master. So he decides, let me satisfy him first by just giving the worldly answer in the context of how people look at things in this world, in the context of his Leela. So he's going to answer after a bhavi balila advaita mahisai Keshava Bharti Chaitanya Guru. If you're thinking this way, Advaita told us that Keshava Bharti is Chaitanya's guru. So he just gave the simple answer. Don't confuse him. That's the answer that he could comprehend and understand. Sometimes an esoteric answer, the person doesn't have the frame of reference, so it doesn't mean anything. Again, an important point. As important as speaking the truth is speaking it in a way that it can be understood. So people understand things according to their experience, according to their attachments, according to their level of education. So what is the filter? How are these words going to be? What are they going to mean to that particular person? So he decides to give the worldly view. But then he thinks for a little bit, and then he said, well, why are you asking that? You already know that Keshav Bharti is his guru, so why are you asking? So you're asking me something that you already know. So what are you really asking? I gave you the answer, but it's an answer you already know. So why are you asking something? You ask a question when you seek an answer. You don't ask a question when you have an answer. A matra advaita balite se kshane daya achutananda oila seistan. As Advaita was still speaking, Achutananda came running to that place. So this is a story that really wants to highlight Lord Chaitanya. Advaitacharya had 6 sons, and 3 didn't turn out so good, and 3 were very pure. And of those, Achutananda is very prominent. And we describe this, that one plan of God, when he talks about the cyclic succession, he sees how easily it is to become nepotism. Like we see in the case of Prabhupada, his oldest son sued ISKCON because he thought the son should get the money of the father. And the youngest son was very simple. And Prabhupada's daughter, I once saw Prabhupada's daughter in the Calcutta temple, and it blew my mind. She had the exact face of Prabhupada, not even a text, it was the exact face. It was like seeing Prabhupada. But Prabhupada's son, so he didn't have that case, and the Yadu dynasty was destroyed so that they wouldn't have this succession based on birth. The lights just went on. Come in. Hey, come on in. Very nice to see you. Yeah. Whatever. Come sit down.
Oh, new table. Very beautiful.
Say hello.
Hello.
That's my disciple Jagannath Priya, who's come here she comes every year to help me in Govardhan. She lives in Gokarna. That's on the west coast of India. What? West coast of South India. Very nice place. Okay. So somehow I got the time wrong, so I still let you just listen a little bit. Okay. And if I do a retreat here in Govardhan, then she'll manage it, because she's very expert at that. That's what she would do professionally. So I wanted to talk to her about maybe having a retreat in Govardhan. And she's here in Govardhan to help Leela Vilasini, who broke her shoulder and arm in many places. So, okay. So really what the story is, it wants to highlight somehow one of the branches, one of the limbs of Lord Chaitanya's, which is Achutananda. So at this time, he's Advaita's son, but he's only 5 years old. So as Advaita was still speaking, Achutananda came running to that place. So he's a little boy. Little boy in India means you're naked. They don't have diapers. You go out and the parent hoses you down. So he was only 5 years old and stood there naked, his entire body covered from dust from childhood play. So he's a child. and children play. And they're not so. I had one godbrother I used to take him. He never went on parikrama. He came to Vrindavan and he stayed in his room. He never went out of his room. That was his nature. He was a leader, but he never went. But somehow or other, his wife was very happy because I was the only person that could ever take him out. So I took him to Govindakund, and the car stopped in a space that he'd have to get dusty. And as soon as he get dusty, he would kind of very fine. But children are not like that. Even today, when I went to this the land ceremony, and there's going to be an incredible, because I was actually the only Prabhupada disciple there, so I was there at the opening, so that means I'm going to be connected with this place. And I rolled in the sand when I came to Vrindavan. So I had all dust. It's okay here. I had all the dirt on my head, but it wasn't like, oh, clean off the dirt. This is like a mark of Braj. His body was as attractive as that as Kartikeya. He has foot knowledge. He was a great devotee, and he possessed all potencies. Abhina Kartika. Abhina means separate. Abhina means not different than Kartika. In that Sarvanga Sundara, all his limbs, Sarvanga, are very, very beautiful. Sarvagya Parama Bhakta. And he's the topmost, he's the Parama Bhakta, and Sarva Shakti Dhara. He held all the potencies. He held all the potencies. Chaitanya Guru Achi Vachana Shunya Krodavesha Kahi Kichu Hasiya. When he heard Lord Chaitanya had a spiritual master, he became very angry, yet he smiled as he spoke. So it was talking, there's a worldly aspect and a spiritual aspect. The worldly aspect is that Keshav Bharti Maharaj is his guru. But from the spiritual aspect, who could be the guru of God? So somehow this young child's getting angry because he is having this higher consciousness. So it wants to indicate that this is not an ordinary soul. Ki balaye papa, baladeki arabara, Chaitanya Guru Ache Vichara Tomara. Oh, Father, why did you say? Can you repeat that? Do you think Lord Chaitanya has a spiritual master? Konva sahase tume emata vachana, jivaya anila iha na puja. How do you dare say such a thing? I don't understand the reason. How can you say that God has a guru? How can there be someone superior to God? The very definition of God given in the first verse of the Bhagavatam is Jadmad Yasya Yaton Vayad Itaratas Chatesh Vibhigya Sarat. He's a Bhigya Sarat. A Bhigya means he knows everything. And Surat means he is the only ruler. So what is the question of God having guru? Since such words come from your mouth, I can understand the age of Kali has arrived. So this is an extraordinary child. And we see different children have different levels of intelligence, different levels of spirituality. One of the proofs of incarnation is that there's fear of death, even from a young child. How is a young child fearful of death? Because he died in his past life. And when you die in your past, wow, isn't this scary, death? I think of that now just in just a way that, when Prabhupada in his room said, don't think it's going to happen to you. when Maharaj Yudhisthira at the pool of death was challenged, you will die unless you ask 100 questions. And he answered 99. And the 100th was, what is the most amazing thing in the world? And the most amazing thing in the world is your father died, your father's father died. But everyone thinks they won't die. It's something, it's amazing. This experience where all your attachments are gone at once. We know. I give the example, if you lose your cell phone, my God, but everything, you lose everything at once. And that's going to happen to everyone. And it's such a, and if it's not, the whole Bhagavatam is based on the premise, if you want to be fearless at the time of death, that's the whole question of Bhagavatam, that this thing is coming and you don't want to die in fear. And fear means we're uncertain of what's going to happen, and what's going to happen is bad. That's fear. What's going to happen is going to happen against the way I want it. So it's such a heavy thing. And that experience makes a samskara in the soul that it stays with the child in his next birth. And that's one of the proofs of reincarnation. So what to speak of that, someone who's deeply spiritual or descends from the spiritual, we see there can be child prodigies. This is a child prodigy in a spiritual realization. So he says his father, you are speaking this way. It means that Kali Yuga has arrived. Otherwise, Lord Chaitanya's most difficult to overcome illusory energy, which bewilders even personalities like Brahma and Shankara, has bewildered you. Who can overcome the illusion of Lord Chaitanya? When you say Lord Chaitanya is a spiritual master, it means that you are influenced by Maya. Otherwise, how can you say such a thing? Because it would mean that Lord Chaitanya required something that he didn't have, and then how would he be God? Why do we take Guru? Because we're in ignorance and we need enlightenment. That means we need something. What's that? Is that my computer? What? Oh, it's my computer. It's not my computer. It's someone. I'm going to find the culprit right now. Okay, there's one person that doesn't. I don't know if it's Kota Gopinath, but you don't have your mic off. So I don't know if it's you or not. Ananta Brahmanda se Chaitanya Ichaya, Sabha Chaitanya Loma Kupateva. By the supreme will of Lord Chaitanya, innumerable universes enter the pores of his body. It is Lord Chaitanya who enjoys his own pastimes in the water. So besides the storyline, this is an opportunity in Gaur Leela to understand his position that Lord Chaitanya is God. He's the supreme Lord. You not know that, Father? Do you not know that, Father? He's the supreme Lord. It has been seen that great sages who were proud of their position did not know who they were or what was their status. So sometimes Yatadeki Mahamuni, Maha Abhiman, Udeshana Takikora Kota Karanam. So we had seen the Mahamunis. They become Maha Abhiman. They get a big self-conception. I remember one sadhu told a friend of mine, don't think you're better than everyone or anyone. So you get Maha Abhiman, you can get a real ego. So even he says, even the great sages, sometimes they don't know. who they were, what was their status. They have a self-inflated conception, just like Brahaspati. Lord Indra, he was the king of heaven, and his guru walked in and didn't stand up. And then all difficulty came. Because the purpose of the world is to purify our consciousness and make us happy. But we need, I described many times, what is the law of karma? The law of karma is giving us a situation and experience to learn something that we can't learn just by hearing. That's what karma is. I'm thinking in my own life, I'm reading the Shastra, etc., but so many things I learn by what happens to me. And there's such perfect circumstances, and I become very joyful, even though it was painful, that I got another level of realization. The more clearly you understand yourself and the more clearly you see the world, the happier you'll be. That's a basic principle of psychology. What does psychology deals with? It deals with the mind that's not digesting things properly, seeing things properly, and therefore you're suffering. So I'm just talking from the platform of psychology, what to explain from the platform of Shastra. This is how, and why do we see people suffer? Because of the way they do not perceive things properly and therefore cannot understand things properly. So what God does is he helps bring us to that platform. And of course, sometimes it entails the pain of not controlling and enjoying the world the way we want to. And then we get a realization. Because that's not happiness. Even if we succeed in controlling and enjoying the world, that's not happiness. And I spoke about this so many times. Happiness is not the things you have, it's the way you perceive the world. It's not the way the world is around you, it's the way you perceive the world. People think it's an absolute standard of happiness is what you have. That's the way we function. No, it's not what you have, it's what you understand. And God gives the world to help us understand things. So now he gives an example. By the conceivable desire of Lord Chaitanya, Brahma appears from the lotus flower that sprouts from his navel. So he said, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. Yet after his appearance, he had no power to see anything until he engaged in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. When the Lord was personally satisfied by his devotional service, he personally imparted in Brahma knowledge of the absolute truth. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakta. By the Vedas, it's difficult. Adurlabham, by bhakti, it's easy. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tvam yena mamupyat. For one who worships me with faith and devotion, I give them the knowledge by which they come to me. It's not just the use of intellect, and it's not just, as Prabhupada said, an electric shock. But you try to understand, and God gives you the understanding. That's why it says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Piyojita Jana Yasu Vairagyam Ganachayata Hoitakam. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Piyojita Jnana. By Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Vairagya, you get knowledge and detachment. But how? By a little hearing, not by doing nothing, but by a little hearing. Then you all automatically understand jnana and vairagya. You understand you're not the body. It's we don't practice jnana, but if those people that are dedicated to in devotional service Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam didami buddhi yogam. God gives it by a little hearing. Not that they have to perform austerities and calculate and analyze. We see that simple Vaishnavas may be so detached. So, God becomes satisfied and he gives himself. And that's the psychological reality, beginning with God and down to any relationship in the world. When you satisfy someone, they give themselves. Why? Because when someone sees service as a practical demonstration of your love for them, then they easily give their hearts. So God gives his hearts to one who serves. That's why Rupa Goswami is Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. That's why Rupa Goswami, Mano Bhishtam, Abhishtam means secret, the secret of the mind. He knew Lord Chaitanya's secret. How? How? Why did Lord Chaitanya give him his secrets? Because he trusted him. Why did he trust him? Because of his attitude of service. Because of his attitude of service. He trusted him. Accepting the Lord's instructions on his head, Brahma then began to create. He thereafter imparted that spiritual knowledge to others. The four Kumars, headed by Sanaka, received that knowledge from Brahma and then mercifully distributed that knowledge to the world. How then can you say that he who is the source of that knowledge, how can you say he has a guru? This is the young boy speaking. He's the source of all knowledge. He imparted the knowledge. He's the original spiritual master. So how can you say that? You are my father and instructing spiritual master, so how can you speak something other than the actual truth? After speaking these words, Sri Achyutananda became silent, and Advaita Prabhu became filled with ecstasy. Advaita exclaimed, "My dear son," as he embraced Achyutananda and soaked his body with tears of love. "You are my father, and I am your son. You have appeared as my son to teach me. I have committed an offense. Forgive me, my dear son. I assure you, I'll not say that again." When Sri Advaita Mahasaya heard Advaita glorify him, Achyuta Mahasaya heard Advaita glorify him. He felt embarrassed among his son. So now the father said, who is the real father and who is the real son? What is actual superiority? Actual seniority is actual knowledge. That's actual seniority. Even one time, it was really interesting at my Vyas Puja, my brother was sitting in the back. And he's a very nice person. My older brother is a very nice person. And he's sitting in the back and no one knows who he is. This is embarrassing, but somehow it came to mind. I'm gonna have to tell it. He didn't know who it was. No one knew who it was. Does anybody like to say, I'd like to say something? I don't know. He started speaking about me when I was 4 years old or something, settled family problems. I didn't know what he was talking about. But then he said something. He said, even though I'm the older brother and he's the younger, I consider him senior. Actually, my brother has a good quality of humility. He's not a proud person. But the point is there. So he's seeing this in his son and he's ecstasy. He's not upset. He says, wow, look what my son said in the depth of knowledge. But of course, because Achyuta has knowledge, when he is praised, he becomes humble. When you're praised, you don't become proud, you become humble. because a learned person doesn't see through the platform of his ego. The learned person sees through the perspective of God. From the perspective of God, one has his identity. So when someone says you're great, it makes him reflect actually how he's not great. If someone glorifies you more than you are, then what do? You reflect on how you really are. So it may be embarrassing. It may be embarrassing. There might be Aspujan person, this about me and that about me. And then I go like, no. So that's just, after the sannyasi heard Achyuta's statements, he immediately offered obeisance to him. The sannyasi said, this is a qualified son of the great, like father, like son. Their conversation is truly amazing. He must be empowered by the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how can the child speak such things? I must have come to see a great and auspicious moment. That is why I could see this wonderful incident. After offering obeisance to a great and his son, the sannyasi then departed chanting the holy names. As a result of this incident, Achyuta is often called the qualified son of Advaita. He is completely surrendered to the feet of Lord Chaitanya. So he's sometimes called Yogya. Yogya means qualified, Advaitanandana. Yogya, Advaitanandana. If one worships Advaita but neglects Gaur Chanda, he is doomed, even if he is the son of Advaita. So this happened. People accepted Advaita, but not Lord Chaitanya. So when his son is just being, it's not just he's speaking, but he's being inspired. He sees that the father innocently is presenting a worldly position. He feels this could be diminishing him. Okay, I kind of said a little bit from Govardhan. I think it's about time to stop. If anybody wants, Jumanajaya, anything in your class that enlivened you?
Hare Krishna Raj, thank you. The whole class was very enlivening. I love that you said something about technology early on. You said, I'm well connected in Govardhan, and you meant technology, but obviously you're well connected in another way. I love that you said that, well connected.
You're like the goddess Saraswati. Even you make things sound even better than they are.
It was the minute you said it, I thought, oh yes, Maharaj, you are well connected.
No, I know. Therefore,
cool.
Thank you.
But
Okay.
I loved how you said karma is teaching us things you can't read in a book. That's really wonderful.
You can, but you won't understand. Okay.
I understand.
Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, when you were saying that when you're in Vrindavan, you know, the winds are blowing, but if you're going against the winds, you're going to suffer, you know. But I was thinking that those same winds are kind of blowing outside of Vrindavan, you know. So if it's like, if you, as you were saying later on, you know, if you understand the purpose of the world and you go with that, you know, you won't suffer as much, I think, as if you think
it's applicable outside, but the force of the energy that moves towards God is much more intense here. But I agree with you. That's the whole trick of, that's probably the trick of living in the world. That when you see anything happening, you see God.
mm-hmm.
And it's just another opportunity for service. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank
Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hey, Bhakti.
I'm so happy you're in Govardhan.
Bhakti Devi, you look like a movie star.
I'm sorry?
You look like a movie star.
Oh, well, thank you. You have to give us the grand tour of your apartment and your grounds there sometime. If you don't want to do it now, you can do it another time.
I can give a little tour, but
Okay.
it's not, but you'll see how clean it's done, okay?
Yes.
I'll just, okay. Oh.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is Eva.
This is who?
Eva from Croatia.
Hey,
Hare
Eva.
Krishna.
Hi, Eva.
Hare Krishna to you, everybody. So nice to see you. Betty.
Hi. I'm Bhakti Devi now.
Yes.
Okay, Eva, I'm going to show people. You had some question? Go ahead. Hang around, Vikram, because I know. Yeah, okay. Eva, you had something to say?
I'm sorry?
Did you have something you want to say?
I'm so happy to see you. Honestly, I didn't understand anything, but I was enjoying to listen your voice.
Okay, there you go. Where are you now?
I'm on the Hvar, on the Island Hvar in Croatia, at home.
Okay, Haribo, thank you.
On the beach, listening your lesson.
Thank you for coming on and
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj.
We'll talk, okay?
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, nice to talk. Very good. Okay, maybe next time I'll make a tour because we'll get the place fixed up more. But look at that, Croatia, look at that. Eva's an artist, a professional artist, like a mechanic, you know, like big things. And now she's building boats. She works on building yachts with people. Okay. Wow. The Adriatic Sea is so beautiful. Okay. Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Gumaraj, Tota Gopinath here.
And Kishori Radha.
Hi, Bo. Good
Hi,
to see you. All right. Maybe we'll have to have the retreat in Govardhan.
Yes.
But it won't be
Not a bad idea.
We can go around Govardhan. What?
We went to the installation on Wednesday.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, it was beautiful. I'll send you pictures.
Excellent.
Why didn't you send me pictures already? I'd love to see it.
Yes, I'll send them today.
How many people came? Because it was during the week.
There was about 40 to 50 people there, I would say.
Okay. Anybody I know?
Your god sister was there, Arundhati.
Arundhati, that's nice.
Yes. And Namras and his family.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really beautiful.
Okay.
Jai Shri Radhe went also with us.
Wonderful. And did you speak to Rasik Mohan?
Yes.
A little bit, and about the future and doing some future programs, and he got a new phone number, so we exchanged numbers, and we're gonna stay in contact.
Okay, we'll try to arrange something up there when it's convenient. Okay, great.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Oh, okay.
Hemaladhara Maharaj, how are you? It's so nice to see you.
So nice. Yeah. Okay, that's their house. They built it themselves, the side of the mountains. Okay, Haribo. Oh, wow, you're working today.
We won the thanks for Govardhan retreat.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell you about it. We'll have a great time. Okay, that sounds it. What do you think? It sounds like a good idea, doesn't it?
It can be done very well.
Easily.
It's very easy.
I have the person here. I'm going to dump everything on our heads, so that's good. Okay, anybody else? Say hello.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Srila Dhanurdhara Swami.
You remember Jagannath? She helped with your.
Hare Krishna.
She helped with your.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you, dear. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for the class.
Okay.
And we are looking forward to seeing you
Thank you.
in Govardhan. Yeah.
I think we'll have a special ceremony then. Because we made the front courtyard especially for that purpose.
Oh, that's lovely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Lal Govinda.
Hey, Lal Govinda.
A Govardhan retreat sounds great, Maharaj. Is that Raghav?
Okay, it's catching with Vikram and Jagannath Priya.
Hare Krishna.
My name is Vikram. He fixed up everything.
Hare
Okay, anybody else? People like that connection. I've seen go.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
That's Ram Sadowski. That's the famous Ram Sadowski. Hey, Ram, Haribo. He got this spiritual name, Ram Sadowski.
Happy you in Vrindavan.
It was nice at the function. Was it nice at the function?
Yeah, and deities are very beautiful, and they made best charinamrita ever. They used only milk, ghee, honey, and it was so delicious afterwards. They didn't mix it with roast. Yeah, they had a feast, and they put all preparations right to the deities, so they made the whole feast maha.
No, so no pictures for me. How is that?
We'll send you pictures. Kishori will send you pictures, and I'll send you mine.
Okay, good. Okay, anybody else? Say hello.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's Isabel.
Who's that?
Isabel.
Oh, Isabel, Haribo. I don't see you, but nice that you're saying hello. Okay, anybody else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Narmasaki here.
Haribo.
Haribo. We're looking forward to see you in Govardhan.
Okay, anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's Akiko.
Okay, Haribo, Kiko.
Haribo. I'm happy to see you back in Govardhan.
Thank you so much. Anybody else?
Very welcome, Raj. Joel Cayley.
Hey, Joe. Okay.
How do I get my hands on one of those apartments?
You just write me and you can stay. That's all.
Sign the contract.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. I love that happiness is the way we perceive the world.
Henry, you got the essence there. Thank you. Wow. Is that like just a backdrop you have?
You know, it's a picture of the Potomac River. It's the Potomac River where I walk with Vyavahāra all the time, and it's the back. And I set it up as my background.
It looks fantastic. Wow. Hey, Henry, do you remember when you sponsored that feast at Govardhan and the stampede almost killed you?
Oh, that was wonderful. I'll never forget it. Thank you, Maharaj. That was a great blessing.
You sponsored all that halava and like thousands of people were the excitement of Braj, right? Okay. Anybody else? Nice.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is Sri Gandharvika.
Okay, Sri Gandharvika, one time you have to come this way. You and Sri Palad, you can stay out in Govardhan.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Shri Rupa. So nice to see you.
So with Tota Gopinath, why don't you organize one time, they can go up there. So same kind of program, but Rasik Mohan can give the class. That'd be nice.
We definitely will. Thank you.
Okay. One more? Okay, I'm gonna head out now. I should open this.